Hello everyone, the Nod-Krai beta is finally out, introducing new regional mechanics and characters, and Aino will be the new 4-star character coming in patch 6.0. Since she is the new 4-star of a new region, she should be given out for free for every player, though we don't have official confirmation about this yet. With this in mind, is she looking like a useful character to play in the Nod-Krai meta? To answer this question, let's take a look into Aino's beta kit to see how good she is currently. But as always, remember that this is very early information from beta, so very subject to change. Before anything, it is important to understand the major team building mechanic that impacts all Nod-Krai characters called Moonsign. Your party will have a different Moonsign depending on the number of Nod-Krai characters you have on the team. One Nod-Krai character means the party has a nascent Gleam Moonsign, and two Nod-Krai characters means the party has an ascendant Gleam Moonsign. The level of Moonsign determines and enables certain buffs from the Nod-Krai artifact sets, weapons, and character talent abilities. And if you have a higher level Moonsign, you will also get any bonuses or effects of the lower level Moonsign unless explicitly stated. For example, Llama's passive gives buffs depending on whether your party has Nascent Gleam or Ascendant Gleam. If you have one Nod-Krai character in the party, you get the first part of her passive that allows Bloom related reactions to crit. If you have two Nod-Krai characters in the party, you'll get both buffs from her passive, the ability for Bloom related reactions to crit and extra crit for Lunar Bloom damage. Many of the important existing buffs require the party to have Ascendant Gleam, which heavily incentivizes at least two Nod-Krai characters for these new Nod-Krai teams. Now let's discuss Aino's initial beta kit. She is a 4-star Hydro Claymore user that ascends with Elemental Mastery. Yes, after almost 5 years since Genshin's release, we are finally getting our first Hydro Claymore who scales with EM. She isn't looking to do a lot of damage though, so her main role in teams is purely for utility, and one of her main support roles is to just exist in the party as a Nod-Krai character along with another Nod-Krai character, allowing the party to achieve Ascendant Gleam, aka 2 total Nod-Krai characters in the party. This will allow you to gain full access to the Nod-Krai artifact sets, weapons, and character kit buffs of other Nod-Krai characters. Aino's skill targets a nearby enemy and grapples herself toward them. This animation is similar to Kenichi's grapple, but you can also think of the ability to work similar to a Keqing skill, as you can tap the skill to dash towards an enemy or hold it to aim the direction. The damage of this ability is pretty irrelevant since it doesn't scale with EM, so its main purpose is to generate hydro particles, and it currently generates 3. Using Aino's burst places a robot ducky into the air, which periodically attacks enemies within its field, applying hydro at a standard ICD. Normally, it will hit every 1.5 seconds, therefore applying Hydro every 3 seconds on a single enemy. However, with Aino's A1 passive, if Aino is on a team with at least 2 Nod-Krai characters, her burst gets enhanced. When enhanced, its attacks will have some AoE, and its field will have a larger attack range. With the upgraded burst, it hits every 0.7 seconds, therefore applying Hydro every 2.1 seconds on a single enemy, making Aino's Hydro application similar to Kokomi's, who applies Hydro every 2 seconds. In addition, with Aino's A4 passive, the damage of her burst will be increased by 50% of her Elemental Mastery, making it deal a little bit more damage, though in the grand scheme of things, it still isn't very relevant. Thus, Aino is just a skill burst and swap out kind of support. That's everything on Aino's base kit. In terms of her initial beta constellation, C1 gives Aino 80 EM for 15 seconds after she uses her skill or burst. With C2, when Aino is off field and her burst is active, when the active character hits an enemy, the burst will fire an additional attack, giving an extra instance of Hydro application that has a 5-second cooldown. C3 increases her burst talent level by 3, C4 makes her skill give an extra flat 10 energy, C5 increases her skill talent level by 3, and lastly, as long as there are a total of at least 2 Nod-Krai characters on the team, Aino C6 grants a 35% lunar reaction bonus for the team for 15 seconds after using her burst. The extra Hydro application from C2 can be helpful for some teams that want the extra Hydro application, specifically Nilou Bloom, but the other big useful constellation is C6, which does give a significant damage buff to lunar reaction based teams like Flinz's teams. So in most cases, it's either you have C6 Aino or you don't. Now, let's discuss Aino's potential build options. Generally, Aino doesn't do much damage, so she is just a pure support. Probably the best support claymore you can use is Favonius Greatsword for the extra clear particles for the team, just make sure you build crit rate for it to proc. The other support claymore you can use if you have it is Makhaira Aquamarine for its team-wide attack buff. Now in teams like Nilou Bloom with Llama, Aino's EM is actually important because she will trigger blooms. In this scenario, one of the best claymores you can use is the 5.8 event one, Flame Forged Insight, which gives a total of 285 EM with its passive on top of flat energy, making Aino's ER requirements very trivial. If you don't manage to get this weapon, you can use the Nod-Krai Craftable Claymore, which has an ER substat and 240 EM with its special passive at R5, assuming you have at least 2 Nod-Krai characters on the team. For artifacts, one of her best options is the new Nod-Krai support set. 2-piece gives 20% ER, and the 4-piece gives team-wide elemental mastery depending on the number of Nod-Krai characters on the team after dealing elemental damage. With one Nod-Krai character, the 4-piece gives the team 60 EM. With 2 Nod-Krai characters, the set gives the team 120 EM. With the current info, the artifact sets are the one example of nascent and ascendant gleam bonuses not stacking, but this is subject to change. On top of that, the set gives a team-wide 10% lunar reaction damage increase based on the number of other Nod-Krai artifact set users. So for example, if Flynns is on the new 4-piece DPS set and Aino is on the team using the new 4-piece Nod-Krai support set, you'll get a team-wide 20% lunar reaction damage bonus. There is a possibility that it's actually 20% plus 20% totaling 40%, but there's no confirmation of this from my knowledge, and 20% is a safer assumption. Now in some scenarios, another Nod-Krai character is a better holder of the Nod-Krai support set. For example, in a Flynns, Enefa, Aino, and Sucrose team, Enefa is a better holder of the Nod-Krai support set because she benefits more from the 2-piece ER. It is currently assumed that the set doesn't stack, so in this case, Aino would just hold 4-piece noblesse for another team buff in the form of attack percent. For main stats, if Aino is in a bloom team, you'll simply want full EM, but otherwise her EM scaling damage is not very relevant, so all you want is just enough ER to burst, and she doesn't really need much of it assuming you're using Favonius Greatsword. So you can do EM or ER Hourglass, EM Goblet, and likely crit Circlet for the Fav procs, but again, optimizing stats other than ER and Fav procs in this support role doesn't look that important at the moment. Finally, let's cover Aino's potential best teams. The main mechanic of Nod-Krai incentivizes 2 Nod-Krai characters on a team to get full advantage of the new artifact sets and the Nod-Krai character kits. Aino's main role in teams is to help meet this 2 Nod-Krai character requirement, but she can also provide a nice 35% lunar reaction damage buff with her C6 to teams that can benefit from it. For example, C6 Aino is one of the best supports in a Flynns team with Enefa. C6 Aino is about equal to a C0 Yelan, but she will scale better with more investment into Flynns and Enefa because of her C6 buff. Now if you don't have Enefa, you can replace her with Fischl, Sara, or Yansan, but you'll need to use Aino in order to maintain the existence of 2 Nod-Krai characters in the party for Flynns' kit and both Nod-Krai artifact sets. Aino can also be used with Lalma in a Nulu Bloom team, for example, to enable all the stats of the Nod-Krai artifact sets and 10% crit rate and 20% crit damage to Lunar Bloom damage with 2 total Nod-Krai characters. However, these may not be that important buffs to have, as the crit to Lunar Bloom damage currently only affects Llama's hold E and C6 damage, so you arguably don't necessarily need to use Aino for 2 Nod-Krai characters on the team, and Llama can do fine with just herself as a Nod-Krai character. But if you are focused on Llama's own damage, it's going to be better to have 2 Nod-Krai characters. Lastly, there is potential to use Aino with another Nod-Krai character to enable the Nod-Krai DPS set for a non-Nod-Krai character such as Alhaitham. It may not be an upgrade since you lose personal damage by replacing the normal Hydro support like Farina or Yelan, but it may be a new usable option nevertheless. And that's everything on Aino as of now. Overall, Aino fits the bill for your average free 4-star character of the new region. Without that many Nod-Krai character options, Aino will be useful to help you meet the 2 Nod-Krai character team requirement that is pretty important to enable the full benefits of the new Nod-Krai artifact sets, weapons, and character kits, which can be very necessary for a Nod-Krai character, for example Flynns. However, Aino's kit itself isn't that amazing. She has decent off-field Hydro application with her burst to enable reactions, but she doesn't do much damage herself, and she doesn't really buff the team other than artifact sets and weapon choices unless you have her C6, which buffs lunar reaction damage, and it will be pretty hard to get her C6 on release without a lot of pulls. And as more Nod-Krai character options are released to help you meet the team building requirement, you are likely to use them over Aino since they will likely provide more to a team, and ultimately it is very likely that Columbina will be the premier Nod-Krai Hydro support, completely replacing Aino in a role when she releases. Thus, Aino is realistically just a temporary Nod-Krai support until better options are released. But still, Aino will likely be free, so she will remain an option that is available for anyone while being very cheap to build, which does have some value. But of course, this is just Aino's initial beta kit, so anything could change in the upcoming weeks. I hope this initial overview and analysis on Aino's kit was helpful to you all. I will continue to analyze any significant beta changes made to Aino as well as all the other 6.0 stuff, so if you want to keep track of the beta changes, I highly recommend subbing to the channel to keep up to date with the latest beta news with TC influence analysis. If you have any questions, feel free to leave a comment or like the video if you enjoyed. And with that, I hope you all have a wonderful day.